You know the story. Galileo looked through a telescope, proved the Earth moved around the sun, and the church got upset. Some house arrest, maybe a slap on the wrist, and science marched on. That is the sanitized version. The one that skips the legal trap, set 17 years before the trial. The forged document that may or may not exist. The plea bargain extracted in a cell. The Pope who ordered his own arguments stuffed into the mouth of a fool. The threat of torture used not to extract the truth, but to break into private thought itself. The white shirt of penitence on a 70-year-old man kneeling before 10 cardinals. That part, that stays buried. Until now. The system they used against Galileo Galilei in 1633 violated its own rules. It forced him to confess before charges were filed. It threatened him with instruments designed to pry open conscience. It published his humiliation across every university in Catholic Europe. And it left a trail of documents that do not add up. We have the receipts, the trial transcripts, the unsigned orders, the letters from ambassadors who watched it happen, the scholarly work from Cambridge University Press published in Church History Volume 85 in December 2016 by UCLA professor Henry Ansgar Kelly, who spent 40 years tracking every procedural violation, the findings from research published by Maurice Finocchiaro in the Galileo Affair from the University of California Press. This is not legend. This is court record, and it is worse than you think. If you value documented history like this, subscribe. It is the best way to support our work. Also, comment from which city you are hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from UCLA's examination of Roman Inquisition procedure in Church History Journal 2016, and Cambridge Core's legal analysis of Holy Office violations published 2017, examining actual tribunal records held at the Vatican that were not fully available until the 1860s. These are peer-reviewed academic sources digging into primary documents, not popular retellings. Now back to the information. Fall 1609, Padua. Galileo Galilei, age 45, mathematics professor, hears about a Dutch spyglass that makes distant objects appear close. The device had been invented by Dutch opticians in 1608, initially sold as military tool and toy. Galileo has never seen one. Based only on description, he figures out how it works. Within a month, he builds his own, 3 times magnification. Not impressive. By August, he has refined it, 8 times magnification. He demonstrates this version to the Venetian Senate from atop the campanile of St. Mark's Basilica. Legislators are amazed. They can see ships approaching harbor hours before naked eye. Military advantage. Commercial advantage. Reward. Doubled salary from 600 to 1,000 florins per year. Life tenure at University of Padua. But Galileo does not stop. He is not satisfied. He continues refining design. Grinds better lenses. Experiments with focal lengths. Eventually achieves 30 times magnification. Most powerful telescope in Europe. Then he does something no one else thought to do. He points it at the sky. December 1609. Through the eyepiece, the moon. Not a perfect sphere as Aristotle claimed 2,000 years ago. Not smooth celestial perfection. Mountains, valleys, craters, shadows cast across the surface. He measures the shadows, calculates mountain heights, some as tall as 4 miles, rough like Earth. This contradicts 2,000 years of philosophy that said celestial objects were perfect spheres, unchanging, immutable, made of different substance than Earth. If the moon has geography like Earth, what does that say about the distinction between terrestrial and celestial? January 7th, 1610, first hour of night. Jupiter comes into view. 3 small bright points near it. Aligned in a row, Galileo thinks they are fixed stars. Background objects. But the next night, January 8th, he looks again. They have moved, and they move the wrong direction. Stars should move one way relative to planets. These move differently. Something is wrong, or something is very right. He observes again. And again, cloudy skies interfere. Frustrating. January 13th, a 4th point appears. Now 4 objects. By January 15th, conclusion crystallizes. Not stars, moons, satellites orbiting Jupiter. 4 celestial bodies carried along with the planet as it moves through the heavens. He continues observing every clear night through early March. Documents their positions. Tracks their motions. Calculates their orbital periods. He names them Medicean stars after patron Cosimo II de' Medici, Grand Duke of Tuscany. Brilliant political move. Ties cosmic discovery to powerful family. Later, they get their permanent name suggested by German mathematician Johannes Kepler and astronomer Simon Marius. Io, Europa, Ganymede, Callisto, named after Zeus's lovers in Greek mythology. The discovery shakes European astronomy. If moons orbit Jupiter, then not everything orbits Earth. The Ptolemaic system claimed all celestial motion centered on Earth. Here is direct evidence of motion around another center. The implications are staggering. March 1610, Galileo publishes Sidereus Nuncius, the Starry Messenger, written in Latin, 60 pages, printed in Venice. Describes his findings. Mountains on the moon with measurements. 4 moons of Jupiter with observations from January 7th through March 2nd. Milky Way is not nebulous cloud, but countless stars too faint to see with naked eye. The book sells out immediately. Copies sent across Europe. Johannes Kepler writes enthusiastic endorsement. The Jesuit astronomers at Collegium Romanum in Rome initially skeptical, but within a year they obtained good telescopes. Repeat the observations. Confirm everything Galileo reported. Then more observations through 1610 and beyond. Venus shows phases like the moon, sometimes waxing to full disk when on far side of sun, sometimes waning to crescent when between Earth and sun. This observation is decisive. It only makes sense if Venus orbits the sun, not Earth. The Ptolemaic geocentric system has Venus always between Earth and sun, which would only allow crescent phases, never full. The Copernican heliocentric system explains the full range of phases perfectly. But pure Ptolemaic system cannot. 1612, 1613. Sunspots. Dark imperfections on the sun's surface discovered independently by multiple observers, including Galileo, Christoph Scheiner, Thomas Harriot. Galileo observes them systematically, draws their positions day after day. They move across the sun's disk, disappear at edge, reappear on opposite edge days later. This shows the sun rotates. It takes about a month for complete rotation, and the spots themselves change over time. The sun is not perfect unchanging sphere. It has features. It has activity. 2,000 years of Aristotelian perfection destroyed by looking through telescope. Scheiner, Jesuit mathematician, argues the spots must be satellites of sun to preserve solar perfection. Galileo argues no, they're on or very near the surface. The debate becomes contentious, creates lasting enmity with powerful Jesuits. These discoveries together support Copernican heliocentrism, not conclusive proof, stellar parallax not detected, which heliocentrism predicts. Telescope not powerful enough, would not be measured for another 2 centuries. But combined weight of evidence is powerful. Mountains on Moon mean celestial and terrestrial are not fundamentally different. Moons of Jupiter mean not everything orbits Earth. Phases of Venus mean Venus orbits Sun. Sunspots mean celestial objects are not perfect and unchanging. Each discovery shifts ground beneath Aristotelian cosmology. 1613. Dominican friar Cosimo Buscaglia tells Christina of Lorraine, mother of Grand Duke Cosimo, that telescopic discoveries are valid, but Earth's motion contradicts Scripture. This conversation happens at Grand Ducal Court. Benedetto Castelli, Galileo's student and friend, writes to Galileo about it. Disturbed by the theological objections being raised, Galileo responds with a long letter to Castelli in December 1613, explaining his views on relationship between Scripture and natural philosophy. Scripture's purpose is salvation, not astronomy. Where Scripture and nature conflict, we must reinterpret Scripture. This letter circulates, reaches wrong hands. February 1615, Dominican Niccolo Lorini, who dislikes Galileo, files written complaint with Inquisition, encloses copy of the letter to Castelli, claims Galileo's views are dangerous. March 1615, another Dominican friar, Tommaso Caccini, testifies in person before Roman Inquisition in Rome, accuses Galileo of heresy for heliocentrism, says it contradicts Scripture, specifically Joshua 10:12-13, where God makes the sun stand still. If the sun stopped moving, it must normally be moving. Earth must be stationary. The Inquisition launches investigation, examines Galileo's writings, takes depositions, interrogates witnesses, including Giannozzi Attavanti, who confirms Galileo holds Copernican views. The charges against Galileo personally are unsubstantiated. No evidence of formal heresy. But officials start worrying about heliocentrism itself. The doctrine, not just the man. February 19th, 1616. The Inquisition asks a commission of theologians about heliocentrism. 11 consultant theologians meet. February 24th, 1616, their unanimous assessment. First proposition, sun is center and immovable. Foolish and absurd in philosophy. Formally heretical because it contradicts Holy Scripture. Second proposition, earth moves. Absurd in philosophy. At least erroneous in faith. February 25th, cardinals presided by Pope Paul V accept the judgments, though they do not formally endorse the heresy label and final decree. Pope Paul V instructs Cardinal Robert Bellarmine to summon Galileo and order him to abandon Copernican opinions. If Galileo resists, the Commissary General will issue formal injunction forbidding him to hold, defend, or teach heliocentrism in any way, and if he still refuses, imprisonment. February 26th, 1616, Palazzo Bellarmine, Rome. Galileo, age 52, meets Cardinal Bellarmine. The 74-year-old cardinal delivers the warning. Copernican theory, contrary to Scripture, do not hold it, do not defend it. Galileo accepts. No argument. Immediate compliance. Meeting should be adjourned. But something else happens in that room. Or maybe it does not. The Holy Office file contains a memorandum dated February 26th. After Bellarmine delivers the warning, the document says, Commissary General Father Michelangelo Segizzi immediately, without pause, reads Galileo a formal injunction. Not just do not hold or defend, do not hold, defend, or teach in any way whatsoever, orally or in writing. stricter than what Pope ordered, harsher than necessary, but the document has problems. Unsigned by Bellarmine, unsigned by any witness, unsigned by Segizzi himself, no notary signature. Just names listed. 2 witnesses are identified as attendants or servants, not clergy. Under Inquisition procedure, documented in canon law, Bellarmine would never have allowed lay servants as official witnesses. Only clergy could witness formal Inquisition proceedings. This violates every protocol. More problems. Pope Paul V's instruction was clear. Bellarmine warns Galileo. If Galileo refuses to obey, then and only then commissary issues the formal injunction. If Galileo still refuses, imprisonment, sequential process. Conditional steps. But according to this memorandum, Segizzi reads the injunction immediately after Bellarmine's warning. Gives Galileo no chance to respond to Bellarmine, no chance to accept or refuse. This defies the Pope's explicit orders. Why would Commissary General act without papal authority? Why would he contradict the Pope's procedure? When rumors spread in following days that Galileo had been tried and forced to abjure heresy, Galileo becomes alarmed. His reputation is at stake. He requests formal certificate from Bellarmine in May 1616, clarifying what actually happened. Bellarmine provides it, signed by the Cardinal himself with his own hand. Dated May 26th, the certificate states clearly, Galileo has not abjured in our hand or hand of any other. No salutary penance imposed. Only the declaration from Congregation of Index notified to him, doctrine attributed to Copernicus that Earth moves around Sun, and Sun is stationary, is contrary to Holy Scripture, therefore cannot be defended or held. That is all the certificate says. Mentions only the standard prohibition from Index decree, no injunction. Nothing about teaching. Nothing about in any way whatsoever. If Galileo had received stricter personal injunction, why would Bellarmine issue certificate omitting it? Makes no sense. The Holy Office's published report in March 1616 describes events exactly as Pope ordered. Cardinals met. Assessment given. Bellarmine carried out task. Galileo acquiesced. No mention of special injunction. If stricter prohibition had been imposed, the official report would mention it. Nobody in authority seems aware, including Galileo himself. What happened? Theories abound. Some scholars argued in 19th century the document was forged in 1632 when Church needed stronger case against Galileo. X-ray tests by investigator Lemmet in 1927 proved no erasure or alteration of the ink. Document is original from 1616, not later forgery. But the odd pagination and filing sequence prove this was not the original filed report. This document was added to the file after the fact. Most likely scenario, according to modern historians. Father Segizzi, Commissary General present at meeting, disapproved of the mild approach, thought Bellarmine was too soft. After meeting ended, Segizzi returned to his office, told his assistant to compose a more strict minute of proceedings, created this memorandum without Bellarmine's knowledge or approval, filed it in Galileo's record. Bellarmine never saw it. When Bellarmine reported to cardinals on March 3rd that Galileo had acquiesced, Bellarmine said nothing about Segizzi's intervention, because he considered it inopportune and contrary to instructions. Some historians argue Segizzi deliberately created ammunition for future use. Either way, regardless of how it got there, this unsigned, procedurally irregular, possibly unauthorized memorandum becomes the weapon that destroys Galileo in 1633. That single document, lurking in the file for 17 years, waiting, 16 years pass. Galileo writes, observes sunspots, publishes the Assayer, 1623, Cardinal Maffeo Barberini becomes Pope Urban VIII, a friend, admirer, humanist interested in science, though baffled by its principles. Grants Galileo 6 audiences in 1624. Tells him Copernican theory never condemned as heretical, only as rash and contrary to Scripture. Urban VIII assures Galileo that as long as he remains Pope, Copernicus has nothing to fear. Permission granted to write about heliocentrism, provided it is treated as hypothesis. Must present both sides. Must include the Pope's argument about God's omnipotence. Cannot limit divine power to one view. Galileo spends 6 years writing dialogue concerning the 2 chief world systems. Conversation between 3 men over 4 days. Salviati, named after Galileo's deceased friend, argues for Copernicus. Strong evidence. Demolishes counter-arguments. Simplicio, supposedly named after 6th century Greek commentator, but simplis means simple-minded in Italian, argues for Aristotle and Ptolemy. Segredo, named after another deceased friend, listens, asks questions, represents educated laymen. Gradually leans toward Salviati, officially neutral, presents both sides. But Simplicio's arguments get systematically destroyed. And the fatal error. Pope Urban VIII had given Galileo an argument. God's omnipotence means we cannot presume which system God chose, cannot limit divine options. Galileo puts this argument in Simplicio's mouth. The simpleton speaks the Pope's words. After Salviati has thoroughly demonstrated heliocentrism, Simplicio offers the Pope's argument almost as afterthought. To many readers, including the Pope, it looks like mockery. Galileo obtains approval from censors in Rome in 1630, makes required edits, adds preface stating theory is hypothetical. Adds conclusion penned by Roman censors. The plague sweeps northern Italy. Church authorities agree Galileo need not return to Rome. Book can be published in Florence. Prints February 1632. Dedicated to Grand Duke Ferdinando II. For a few months, everything seems fine. Then the political situation shifts. Pope Urban VIII faces pressure. Spanish cardinals attack him for being too tolerant. The 30 Years' War rages. Urban needs to demonstrate orthodoxy. When the Pope reads the dialogue, he is enraged, sees himself mocked, sees Galileo as having deceived him, broken their agreement, defended heliocentrism as truth rather than hypothesis. Strongest arguments go to Copernican side. This is advocacy. August 1632. Pope bans the book. Establishes special commission. Melchior Inchofer. Agostino Reggi. Zaccaria Pasqualigo. September 1632. Commission reports. Galileo treated heliocentrism as established. Violated injunction from 1616. Deceived censors. The file from 1616 is pulled. That unsigned memorandum. Now it becomes the centerpiece. September 1632. Holy Office orders Galileo to Rome. 70 years old, ill, frightened. He delays, pleads sickness. Plague ravages northern Italy. But Pope insists. Get Galileo to Rome. Use chains if necessary. Grand Duke Ferdinando II intervenes. Galileo can lodge at Tuscan embassy, but he must come. Galileo departs Florence, January 20th, 1633. 23 days, travel by litter. Arrives Rome, February 13th. Lodges at Tuscan embassy, Villa Medici. Ambassador Francesco Niccolini reports, Galileo cries 2 nights straight with sciatic pain, his aging and sorrow. April 8th. Niccolini tells Galileo he will stand trial before 10 cardinals. Also delivers harder news. The merits of your case are decided. All you can do is submit. April 12th, 1633, Galileo surrenders to Holy Office. Faces Father Vincenzo Maculano da Firenzuola, Commissary General, and Assistant Carlo Sincero. Detained in Inquisition building, not in cell. In prosecutor's apartment, 3 comfortable rooms, food from embassy chef, but still prisoner. Now the violation. Interrogation on April 12th happens before charges are filed. This violates canonical law, according to Kelly's analysis. Goal is confession extracted before defendant knows accusation. Galileo swears on Gospels to tell truth. When and why did you come to Rome in 1616? Galileo answers he came because he heard objections to Copernicus, wanted to know what was proper to hold. Who did you speak with? Cardinals Bellarmine, Aracoeli, San Eusebio, Bonsi, D'Ascoli. At least 5 cardinals. What did Bellarmine tell you? Said Copernican opinion could be held suppositionally as hypothesis. Then Galileo presents evidence. Copy of Bellarmine's certificate from May 1616, signed. States Galileo has not abjured. States only that index declaration notified to him. Says nothing about teaching. Nothing about in any way whatsoever. Then Maculano shifts. Was there anyone else present in February 1616? Did you receive injunction from someone other? Galileo hesitates. As I remember, the affair took place in the following manner. I do not recall perfectly. Many years ago. Maybe I was given an injunction not to hold or defend, but I do not recall it. Who gave the injunction? I do not recall receiving it any other way than orally by Lord Cardinal Bellarmine. Maculano presses. But the file shows an injunction, in presence of witnesses, Dominican fathers. Command not to hold, defend, or teach in any way whatsoever. Stricter than Bellarmine's certificate. Galileo insists he does not recall anything stricter. The certificate is his evidence. Why would Bellarmine give certificate, stating milder terms if harsher orders given? Makes no sense. Interrogation ends. Galileo returns to rooms, shaken. The file contains something he did not know about, unsigned. But there, 16 days pass. Case stalls. Cardinals meet April 27th. Galileo denied his book defended heliocentrism, but the book manifestly does. Without admission, conviction is difficult. So Commissary Maculano proposes extrajudicial discussion, private negotiation, a plea bargain. Writes to Cardinal Francesco Barberini explaining difficulties. If Galileo continues denying that which manifestly appeared, it will be necessary to apply greater rigor and justice. That phrase, greater rigor, everyone knows, torture. But Maculano notes Galileo is famous, poor health, advanced age, torture problematic, bad optics, international scandal. So Maculano requests power to confer with Galileo outside court. April 28th. Maculano visits Galileo. They talk for hours. The negotiation. Maculano explains. Cardinals believe you defended Copernicanism. The book makes it obvious. You are in danger, but there is a way out. Admit the book went too far. Say you got carried away with clever arguments. Not because you believe it, but from vanity. Do this light punishment. Quick resolution. Home soon? Continue denying much worse. Galileo, 70, in pain, imprisoned, far from home. Daughter writing worried letters, weighs options. He understands the threat. Greater rigor, the rack, the strappado. Better confess error in presentation than face heresy charges. He agrees. April 30th, second deposition. Galileo confesses. Upon rereading dialogue after long disuse, appeared to him almost like new text by another author. Sees now the arguments supporting Copernican's side were powerfully convincing rather than easily dismissed. Error came from ambition, from natural pleasure in subtle arguments, from seeking to appear shrewd, excess virtuosity, ready to make amends. The bargain is struck, or so Galileo believes. May 10th, third deposition. Formal trial. Galileo appears before Maculano. Charges presented. 8 days to prepare defense. But Galileo does not wait. Pleads immediately. Guilty to giving appearance of supporting heliocentrism. Not guilty to violating precept because certificate from Bellarmine shows only milder warning. Not guilty to malfeasance for not mentioning precept to censors because he relied on certificate. Submits written defense arguing purity of intentions. Requests leniency based on age and illness. Session ends. 37 days pass. Behind closed doors, summarium of case prepared for Pope and Cardinal Inquisitors. June 16th, they meet at Cornwall Palace. 6 of 10 Cardinal Inquisitors present. Maculano present. They review only summary, standard procedure. After hearing opinions, Pope decrees Galileo must be interrogated about his intentio, his actual private beliefs, under threat of torture. By turn of 17th century, Holy Office adopted new policy. When defendant admits heterodox deed but denies heterodox intention, examination under torture is automatic. Purpose is not to verify facts, but to penetrate conscience. Force confession of private thoughts. This goes against Church's own principles about forum of conscience. But heresy inquisition regularly violated defendants' rights. Pope Urban VIII explicitly ordered this, force Galileo under oath and threat of torture to reveal private opinions. Kelly states this is stunning demonstration of how far heresy inquisition had come in violation of rights. Decree includes limitation. Because of Galileo's age and ill health, stop short with mere threat. This is routine for elderly or sick defendants according to UCLA findings, not special favor. If Galileo passes test by maintaining he does not hold heretical view, convicted of vehement suspicion of heresy, lesser charge. If he fails and admits he held or holds belief, conviction of actual heresy, harsher punishment. June 21st, fourth deposition. Galileo appears before commissary, takes oath of truth. Asked if he has anything to add. No, then the questions. Does he hold or has he held that sun is center? From book, it is presumed he held that opinion. Let him tell truth. Galileo answers he held Ptolemaic and Copernican systems as equally possible before determination of index. After, held only accepted view. Ptolemaic, earth center, repeated pressure. Arguments in your book presume you held heliocentrism. Galileo does not budge. Unless he confesses truth, appropriate legal remedies will be employed. Still does not budge. Finally, let him tell truth, or else it will come down to torture. Rigore di tortura. Galileo maintains position. I do not hold this opinion since determination. I am here in your hands. Do what you please. Record states rigorously examined. Means threatened with torture, but not subjected according to scholars. Instruments may have been present. Room may have been where torture happened. But decree stopped short. Galileo, 70, facing Strapido or rack, holds firm. Or crumbles. Transcript is terse. What happens in that room stays murky, but he does not confess belief. He passes the test. June 22nd, 1633. Morning. Convent of Santa Maria, Sopra Minerva, Rome. Galileo, dressed in white shirt of penitence, enters hall. Before him, 7 of 10 Cardinal Inquisitors. 3 refuse to sign. Sentence is read, long, detailed, recites history. Denounced 1615. Warning from Bellarmine. Injunction from commissary not to hold, defend, or teach theory in any way. Then dialogue published 1632. Examined by commission. Found to defend Copernican theory strongly despite injunction. Verdict. Vehemently suspect of heresy. Having believed and held doctrine, false and contrary to Holy Scripture, that sun is center and immovable, earth is not center and moves. Penalties. Dialogue prohibited. Banned. Formal imprisonment at discretion of Holy Office. Salutary penance of 7 penitential psalms once a week for 3 years. 7 cardinals sign. Felice Centini d'Ascoli, Guido Bentivoglio, Desiderio Scaglia, Antonio Barberini, Berlinguero Gessi, Fabrizio Verospi, Martino Ginetti. 3 do not sign. Sentence delivered, Galileo kneels. Hands on Holy Gospels, age 70, recites abjuration formula. I, Galileo, son of late Vincenzo Galilei, Florentine, age 70 years, arraigned before this tribunal, kneeling before you, most eminent cardinals, inquisitors general, having before my eyes and touching with my hands Holy Gospels, swear I have always believed, do believe, and by God's help will believe all that Holy Catholic Church holds, preaches, and teaches. Therefore, desiring to remove from minds of your eminences and faithful Christians this vehement suspicion, with sincere heart and unfeigned faith, I abjure, curse, and detest the aforesaid errors and heresies. I swear in future I will never again say or assert anything that might furnish similar suspicion. If I know any heretic, I will denounce him to Holy Office. I swear to fulfill all penances imposed. If I contravene any promises, I submit to all pains and penalties. He signs. I, Galileo Galilei, have abjured as above with my own hand. Convent della Minerva, 22nd day of June, 1633. Ceremony ends. Galileo released to Florentine ambassador 2 days later. Niccolini reports him extremely downcast. But punishment is not imprisonment. 1 day formal detention, then Villa Medici, 6 days there. Then June 30th, Pope grants permission for transfer to Siena. Residence of Archbishop Ascanio Piccolomini, old friend. 5 months in Siena, treated as honored guest. December 1633, authorization for return to Villa at Arcetri. Villa El Gioiello, the jewel, house arrest for remainder of life. But Pope orders more. Sentence must be published widely. This is unusual, according to Kelly. Most sentences stayed internal. Not Galileo's. Pope demands broadcast to every university, every professor in Catholic Europe. Orders go to nuncios from Padua to Bologna, Milan to Mantua, Florence to Naples to Venice to France, Flanders, Switzerland. In Florence, plenary session of Inquisition with mathematicians invited to hear condemnation read aloud. The goal is example, warning, humiliation weaponized. At Arcetri, Galileo lives 300 meters from San Mateo convent, where daughter Virginia, Sister Maria Celeste, resides. Born 1600, out of wedlock to Marina Gamba, he placed Virginia and Sister Livia in convent 1613 when Virginia was 13. Considered unmarriageable due to illegitimate birth, Virginia took religious name Maria Celeste, October 4th, 1616, in honor of Virgin Mary and her father's astronomy. From convent walls, she becomes his greatest support. Cannot leave, cloistered for life, but writes constantly, bakes treats, mends clothes, makes medicines, manages his household from her cell. 124 of her letters survive. His response is lost, probably destroyed by church. Letters show sharp mind, deep faith, tender attachment. Worries about his health, diet, loneliness. During trial, watches from afar, powerless. Writes constantly during 1633. Emotionally distraught. When sentenced, she offers to take his penance. 7 psalms weekly for 3 years. Receives approval. Takes burden upon herself. Last letter, December 10th, 1633. Shortly after Galileo returns in disgrace, Maria Celeste's health collapses. Late March, 1634. Dysentery. Fever. Condition deteriorates. Galileo, old crippled under house arrest, receives permission to visit. Every day for over a week walks to convent. 300 meters. Watches her suffer, helpless. April 2nd, 1634. Sister Maria Celeste Galilei dies from severe intestinal bleeding. Age 33. Galileo writes, I feel immense sadness and melancholy, loss of appetite. I hate myself. Continually hear calls from my beloved daughter. But he works. Barred from publishing in Italy. Banned from discussing heliocentrism. Yet visitors come. Thomas Hobbes. John Milton, 1638, publishes 2 New Sciences, final work, summarizing 40 years of study on kinematics and strength of materials. Published in Leiden, Holland, to avoid censors. Albert Einstein later calls it one of most important scientific works ever written. Same year, Galileo goes completely blind. Develops painful hernia and insomnia. January 8th, 1642. Age 77. Fever and heart palpitations. Galileo Galilei dies at Villa El Gioiello. Grand Duke Ferdinando II wishes to bury him in main body of Basilica of Santa Croce next to Father's tomb. Pope Urban VIII and Cardinal Barberini protest. Galileo condemned for vehement suspicion of heresy. Plans dropped. Buried in small room next to Novices Chapel. Secondary location? No ceremony, hidden 95 years later, 1737. Body moved to main basilica. During transfer, 3 fingers, vertebra, tooth removed. Fingers now rest in Museo Galileo. 1758, Church drops general prohibition on heliocentric books from index, but does not rescind decisions against Galileo. 1820, debate resurfaces. Master of Sacred Palace refuses to license book treating heliocentrism as physical fact. After reconsideration, prohibition overturned. 1835, dialogue on Copernicus's De Revolutionibus omitted from next index, officially permitted. 1992, 359 years after condemnation. Pope John Paul II, after 13-year investigation, acknowledges Church persecuted Galileo unfairly. Cardinal Paul Poupart presents findings. The Galileo case remains a challenge. Not quite apology, more admission of mistakes. Verdict stands. Vehement suspicion of heresy. Never formally overturned. Just acknowledged as wrong. What remains in archives tells the story Kelly and Finocchiaro pieced together. Unsigned injunction that should not exist. Pope, who demanded examination under torture for private beliefs. Plea bargain, extracted in isolation. 70-year-old man kneeling in white penitence, forced to curse ideas he spent life proving. Sentence published to every corner of Catholic Europe. Daughter who died of grief. 9 years house arrest. Burial inside chapel. Removal of fingers, as if Church could erase what his hands wrote but needed pieces. The trial of Galileo was about power. Power to define truth. Power to enter conscience. Power to make old man kneel and renounce what he saw. Inquisition's tools were legal procedure, twisted to extract confession before charges, forced self-incrimination, threat of torture for thoughts, public humiliation as deterrent. Every step documented. Every violation recorded by institution committing it. Church kept receipts. Just did not expect anyone to read them this carefully 400 years later. In archives sits the file. Summarium reviewed by Pope. Transcript of June 21st with final threat. Abjuration signed in Galileo's hand. Orders to publish across Europe. And in margin of history, a story circulates, probably false, that as Galileo rose from knees, he muttered an "Eppur si muove." And yet it moves. Phrase first appears in print over a century later, likely invented by later generation seeking poetic justice. If Galileo actually said it in that room, he would have risked automatic death sentence. Anyone recanting, then immediately asserting heresy, faces execution. Galileo was too smart, too broken, too desperate to survive. But whether he said it that day or weeks later or never, phrase captures something Inquisition could not break. Earth does move. Sun is center. No legal procedure, no threat of torture, no white shirt of penitence, no public humiliation, changes physical reality. Church could make Galileo kneel. Force words from mouth. Ban book and broadcast, shame. Isolate him in villa. Take daughter through cruelty of timing. Take sight 8 years into house arrest. Bury inside chapel. Remove fingers when they moved body, but could not stop earth from turning. That is final indignity for Inquisition. All that power consolidated over centuries. All that procedure refined through thousands of cases. All those violations documented by their own record-keeping. Threat of instruments. Invasion of private belief. Forced confession before charges. Unsigned injunction. Plea bargain. Theatrical sentencing. Widespread publication. All meant to demonstrate authority. Warn others. See what happens when you challenge us. See machinery that grinds you down. 7 cardinals signed. Sentence went to every university. Professors forced to gather and hear it read. Message was clear, and Earth kept moving anyway. While Galileo knelt, Earth was orbiting Sun at 30 kilometers per second. While they read sentence, Earth rotated at over 400 meters per second at equator. While they threatened torture, thoughts did not change reality. Moons of Jupiter still orbited Jupiter. Venus still showed phases. Sun still had spots. Moon still had mountains. Physical reality was indifferent to their verdict. Galileo died under house arrest January 8, 1642, age 77, blind, in pain, still forbidden to discuss heliocentrism, still unable to publish freely in Catholic territories. Final work smuggled out and published in Holland, 1638. Church admitted error 359 years later. Pope John Paul II, in 1992, after 13-year investigation, acknowledged persecution unfair. Not apology, not reversal, just acknowledgement of mistakes. 3.5 centuries to admit obvious Earth never noticed argument, did not pause orbit for Inquisition, did not slow rotation for cardinals, did not change course for Pope, just kept moving. Through 1633, through 1642, through 1737 when they moved his body, through 1835 when they removed his books from index, through 1992 when they admitted error, through today. Earth keeps orbiting Sun at same speed it always has, completely indifferent to human authority, human procedure, human certainty about what can and cannot be questioned. That is lesson Inquisition could not silence. Physical reality does not care about your verdict. Receipts are in archives, procedural violations documented, injustice recorded by those who committed it. And Earth, still moving, neither notices nor cares.